Hello, Flickering with family. I am finally back with a new movie review. My name is EJ Marino, and I'm so excited to dive into this week's movie. Actually, we have a few movie reviews this week, but first up, we are talking about the new action comedy, Novocaine. Holy smokes, I have not been able to review a movie in quite some time, so for me to come back from my small break and have to see Novocaine, I was nervous at first. Action comedies, my goodness, these are so hard to perfect. We've had quite a few. We've had quite a few this year alone, and then last year, remember Argyle? My goodness, you can see where an action comedy can easily go wrong. What was that Love Hurts movie this year? Wow, we've seen the worst that they can be already in 2025. So Novocaine, I was a bit hesitant. I'm like, okay, we just saw Jack Quaid in Companion. This premise is okay. Where can we go with it? But halfway through the movie, I was just like, wait, this is kind of funny. Wait, this is kind of romantic. Oh, the action's really good. I will say it is just kind of funny and kind of romantic. I do think the romance and the comedy plot are a bit weaker compared to how good I think the action is. I was very impressed because I was worried it was going to be what's that company that does all the John Wick action scenes? They just did that Ki Kwan movie this year. Yeah, I don't like it. They did Nobody. It's not my favorite. I think we're kind of, we've ran that kind of action movie out. That type of cinematography, that kind of set pieces, we've run them into the ground. Novocaine felt different. I think there's almost a horror aspect to the brutality of this movie. It got gory. I was consistently like, they're not going to do that. Oh, they're doing that. And I love that feeling. I thought that was really good. So I think that's what makes Novocaine feel so refreshing, is it doesn't feel like the rest. It doesn't look like the rest. It doesn't sound like the rest. It's not trying to be like the other action comedies that we get, 4 or 5 a year. This was trying to be somewhat unique. It's definitely a action comedy where I'm like, oh, the cinematography is kind of basic 3-point lighting kind of setups, very standard cinematography. It does pick up here and there. I thought the music was like, oh, like 70s rock for most of it. Cool. There's those things that kind of fall back into the tradition or the tropes or what you would expect from a movie like this, especially a big blockbuster. But for the most part, I thought it handled it well. It handled the plot. There was twists and turns that I didn't really see coming. There was just a lot of here that I'm like, oh, this was better than it should be. I know that sounds condescending, but when you get movies like this, when you see enough, you get refreshed. I was genuinely surprised and taken back by how good this was. Director Dan Berk and Robert Olsen, I remember them from Significant Other a couple years ago. I want to see more action movies from you guys. I actually want to see you dip into an action horror film. Maybe something in the world of Upgrade. You guys remember that Lee Winnell movie with the implant and he had like the robo fights and stuff? Something like that, because they mix the brutality very well here. I love a horror film. You can see it in the background, you can see my shirt. Horror movie is it's my thing, so I was kind of hoping the action would, this guy can't feel pain, so we're able to push him. We're able to make him like a pincushion. So can we push it? And they did. There was times here, there was bones, like at one point his arms like flopping around, like I'm like, oh, nails. That nails get pulled. That is like a horror trigger for me. I hate it. It grosses me out, but it worked here. It was so good, and just that is such a good comedy scene too, where he can't feel pain and he's kind of pretending to be tortured, and they're pulling it, and he's just like, genius. Like I just think Dan and Robert did really, really good with their craftsmanship here, with making this feel fresh and new, and not making it feel completely traditional. They still have to make this mainstream acceptable. There's this one guy who laughed at the worst jokes in my theater. That guy, those kind of jokes. Every that joke, the guy was ha-haing in the background. So they definitely had to make kind of an easy in for everyone to go and everyone kind of to vibe with it. But then you're like halfway through the movie and you're like, this is gorier than some of the new Saw movies. Like, are you kidding me? I was really just genuinely impressed that these filmmakers and this whole team were able to push the action and the brutality together well. Do I think the comedy struggles a bit? Yeah, I'm not the biggest comedy person anyway, so that's just going to be a personal taste thing where some of the jokes didn't land for me. And I thought the romance, we'll talk about Jack Quaid and Amber Midthunder in a moment, but they were fine. The chemistry was okay. I think Jack Quaid is definitely a very charming man. Am I a bit tired of this kind of awkward, kind of pathetic, kind of cute, charming guy he plays in almost everything? Like, yeah, I'm a little done with it. I want to see some range, but it worked well here, and it worked well to sell the romance. It sold the comedy, and it sold the action. Like Jack Quaid, if he was not the central figure in this could have gone very wrong. Nathan Kane, played by Jack Quaid, is a man who cannot feel pain. He has this rare genetic disorder. I mean, to the point where like he can't even really eat solid food because he's scared he's going to bite his tongue. This man has had a struggle of a life, very isolated. He feels like so he finally gets the courage to ask out a girl who works at the bank with him. He has a great night with her. The next day, she is kidnapped in a bank heist plot, and it's like, oh, he's just like, you know what? I'm kind of done with it. Let's go. I was worried this was gonna fall into like Fall Guy territory, where I was like, oh god, just like let's get this like love story over. But yes, he's aiming for his girl. He wants like Sherry very bad, which is great, and he will do some crazy stuff for it. But I really did feel this was a story about him growing in himself and finding his footing as an action hero, as a superhero. So many people call him. He's just like, no, I hate this thing that's wrong with me. Then he learns to use it. I mean, that's that moment we've seen in the trailer where he just is like, well, I guess I'm doing it. He just puts his hand in the like the fryer, and it's so gross. And that hand, you see it throughout the whole movie. It's pretty great. But yeah, those moments, it just you feel him, you feel the character go through those evolutions. It's really good. So yeah, he's basically having to go across town and save the girl that he has feelings for. It is a pretty basic plot, and the basic plot allows the gags to be good, the fight scenes to be good. There is one fight scene at like a tattoo place guy that I thought was like, okay, until he like puts the his bloody hands in the glass and beats him with it. Then I was like, oh, okay, finally, we leveled up this fight scene. It was pretty like standard. And there's this one Home Alone trap kind of scene. Not my favorite part, but those were the only two action scenes that I felt were like the end one with Ray Nicholson. Oh my goodness. He doesn't look like Jack Nicholson all the time, but every now and then he'll like put the face down. I'm like, there it is, and he is good. He is like disgusting in this movie, and it's hard because I thought the villains, there's like other two kind of goon villain dudes, and I was like, oh, I hate them. But once we focused on that Ray Nicholson playing this up, he's great. Amber Midthunder, you saw her in Prey, the Native American Predator movie that came out a couple years ago. I loved her in that, and I was so worried they were going to fridge her. Like, in comic books or, superhero movies where there's a cool female character and we have to, like, kind of throw her away for the whole movie because in service of a male character. Think like the first Deadpool, they even make jokes about fridging and stuff. Yeah, it does get a little bit there, but then she gets a fight scene at the end, and I'm like, okay, cool, she's more badass than Jack Quaid. I believe Amber Midthunder can beat more ass than Jack Quaid can. So to see her just kind of be like, damsel in distress for some of it was a bit confusing, and then when she gets an action scene, I'm like, there's my girl. There is what she's at. All these like players come together for a decent cast. None of these people are these biggest names in the world. Jack Quaid, Amber Midthunder, Ray Nicholson, none of them are going to they weren't the ones who sold the tickets, and I don't mean that shadily, but I think they will be, though. I think they are the reason to see this. All three of these players come together to make this such a lively, a fun experience, a movie worth watching in a cinema. I saw this in the Dolby. Them fight scenes hit to the point where I was like, can we lower this a little bit? Like, I'm jumping out of my seat every time someone gets punched. Yeah, I really think this was a cinematic experience that I did not expect. Did not expect it to be this good, but it ended up being far better than it has any right to be. The weirdest thing for me is I would probably watch a Novocaine too. I did not think this movie would need to be IP. Do we need to sequel it up? But I would watch it again. Like, I would watch this movie again. I would watch another outing with Jack Quaid, Amber Midthunder. I would watch these kind of people come back together. I don't think Ray Nicholson's coming back. We would have to find new villains because my goodness, things happen in this movie. But yeah, overall, I definitely think this is a world, a universe that's worth expanding on more. The weird cop characters that we got, like Betty Gabriel and like that. This is a world that I could see us returning to, and we don't have to. I'm not saying I need a sequel to Novocaine, but I think the biggest praise I can give this is I want more in a good way. Like, I want to see more. It left me fulfilled with a good experience, but being like, I would return to these people. Let me know when you guys ever eventually want to do a sequel. I would watch it. So yeah, guys, that is my review of Novocaine, a new action comedy. romance, a little bit of a horror, not horror, but a little bit of a brutality in there. It has so many genres, has so many elements, but they all work together for a fun experience. Thank you guys so much for checking out my review of Novocaine. Share your thoughts down in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Subscribe, all the YouTuber stuff. Thumbs up, the bell, the whistles, all that jazz. Let's talk about Novocaine, though, right down below.